Raise the minimum wage. Why or why not? And if so, what should it be?
I believe the minimum wage should be on a graduated scale. That means your larger corporations that are doing well, they should have the opportunity to pay their employees better. They should pay their employees better for a better standard of life. When you're working for a minimum wage in a large company, to me, that is totally unacceptable. When you get down to the lower end of the business, if you're a mom and pop, if you will, and that mom and pop is not making that much money, they should be graduated down to the maybe $8.50 an hour range, so we can have affordable living. You're less dependent on the federal or the state. Therefore, it would raise the people, it would empower them and keep them going, and it would raise our way of life.
Thank you very much. Mr. Becker.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the minimum wage at all. I'm a believer in free markets and that wages should be negotiated individually or collectively for that matter with business and employees. The problem with a minimum wage of any kind is it's government interference in the marketplace, and it's something I'm very hesitant to get into. Of course, some regulation is necessary. So to increase the minimum wage, no, that's something I would not support. We currently have it built into our Constitution automatic increases with the inflation rate, so that's not going to change unless that goes to the people. And of course, I accept whatever the people decide. And the people did decide to set the minimum wage where it is with the annual increases. So anything above and beyond that because of market economics, frankly, the minimum wage tends to hurt more people than it helps. And you have businesses out there that want to hire X number of people. Well, they only have a budget that goes so far, and the higher they have to pay individuals, the fewer people that they hire. So it actually promotes unemployment, exactly the opposite of what we want. And another thing is, people individually, when they go to college and decide on a career path, they decide what their wage is going to be. Because, they decide this in advance. Because, it's not hard to know, looking at statistics and history, what jobs are going where and what jobs pay the most. And the people who want a higher wage will go into those fields that simply pay higher amounts. And the people who perhaps want to stay single all their lives and don't want to have a family and don't want to make a lot of money, don't care, that's fine too. That's their choice. Then they can stay in a lower wage paying job. That's the big question.
Thank you, Mr. Becker, and you will get the next question first. It is, what is your position on Common Core?
Sure, thank you. Common Core. I co-sponsored the bill. It was first written by Andy Thompson to repeal Common Core in Ohio. In fact, I was the one that brought it to the attention of the Republican caucus early on. This was during the budget debate, which was House Bill 59 in the spring of last year. My problems or concerns with Common Core, I sit on the Education Committee, and I've heard testimony from both sides. Some people say it's better, some people say it's worse in terms of the standards. I've had some people explain to me, well, it's both. Some schools, it makes the standards higher, some schools makes the standards lower. So, so do we have a one-size-fits-all? And I think that's a bad idea. That's another reason I don't like Common Core. And also, it's a matter of who's creating these standards and who sets these standards. And, some people like to say, well, this is done by the federal government. This is federal controlled education. Well, I'm not sure that I would argue that far, but it is a consortium of states. It is outside of the, I shouldn't say the consortium of states. It's, I think it was the Governors Association, that created this. And so it's outside of the control of Ohio, at least to a large extent. I certainly favor high standards and good standards. I just want those standards to be written by Ohioans for Ohioans, and the people like you who can get to people like me, your state representative, your state school board people, to change those standards or control those standards or have input into those standards, I think is a much better system than what Common Core offers.
Thank you. And Mr. Carlier, your position on Common Core?
I'm a firm believer in Common Core. That gives the educators the opportunity to use the Common Core practice to where they can educate their children that's in a classroom. Who knows better than a teacher on how to teach? It gives them the tools. It gives them another tool, different tools for them to teach. Because not all children are alike. Some's not going to learn as fast. Some's going to learn faster. I will agree with that 100%. However, I believe in Common Core, and I believe it should be more flexible throughout the state because you have 630 plus school districts, public schools. Therefore, you can't dictate where in one school you're going to do one thing, another school you will do something else. So I believe the Common Core will take care of that. And it was developed by educators. That's what it was developed for. And I believe the Common Core is a good thing.
Thank you very much. And you will get this question first. Since the Ohio Supreme Court declared the public funding of education unconstitutional in the 1980s, what will you do to address the issue in the legislature?
That has been an ongoing thing for many years. The Constitution of the state of Ohio dictates that we have to fund the schools. The court system is set, it's unconstitutional. If it's unconstitutional, then the House needs to sit down, the Senate needs to sit down, come together, and get what is constitutional with funding. It's that simple. You can't get any more simpler than that. That should be done by the House, the Senate, get together, not separately, not politics as usual, get together, do it, get the funding straightened out, go through the court system, make sure that the court system agrees with that, make sure it's constitutional, put it into effect. That's what the role of the Ohio legislative branch is for.
Thank you very much. Mr. Becker.
Sure. Yeah, the Rolfe decision, that was an issue I took a pretty close look at back when I was working toward getting a school district treasurer's license, which I have obtained. But I had to take 2 classes to get that license in addition to some experience hours. One of them was school finance, the other was school law. So I did a research paper on the Rolfe decision. I'll have it in front of me because some years ago, but going from memory, it seemed like there was, I want to say, 4 iterations of the Rolfe time. The Supreme Court said to the General Assembly, you have to spend more money, spend more money, spend more money. So that was a decision that kept getting handed down, and the General Assembly continued to spend more money, spend more money, spend more money. At some point over time, with these multiple iterations that occurred with the Rolfe decision, the makeup of the Supreme Court changed. The activist justices had retired or were defeated, and they were replaced by conservative justices. And during that transition, the Supreme Court concluded they're not going to look at the Rolfe decision again, at least not at that point. So, I've heard people argue over the years, and I hear this pretty regularly, that our school funding is unconstitutional. Well, that's simply not true. Anytime a law is passed, it's assumed to be constitutional unless or until a court declares otherwise. So this is how funding formulas for schools has changed multiple times. And over the years, it changes with every governor we have, for goodness sakes. And every General Assembly, I think it even changes. So if anybody believes that the current funding system is unconstitutional, they're welcome to take that to the Ohio Supreme Court, and they'll let us know what they think. But until then, it is constitutional. But there's certainly room for improvement in how we fund schools.
Thank you, Mr. Becker. And this next question will go to you first. Do you support Medicaid expansion in support of the Affordable Care Act?
Medicaid expansion, no, I certainly do not support it. Medicaid expansion or Medicaid, the program, is widely recognized as the most corrupt, most wrought with fraud, most inefficient government program ever devised. So to expand something in that category is, to me, the exact wrong direction to go. I've seen statistics on Medicaid or states with Medicaid expansion versus otherwise on outcomes of patient care, that the people on Medicaid are actually worse or in the expansion states. I don't know how much of that is true, but I've seen that, and so there might be something to that. When we were talking about that, and for doing that in Ohio, of course, Governor Kasich was pushing for that pretty hard. I was staunchly opposed from day one. In fact, I introduced a bill on my own for Medicaid reform, which would save taxpayers $1.5 billion a year on Medicaid spending. So currently, what happened was the governor bypassed the General Assembly and used an interesting maneuver called the Controlling Board, which is really a state agency made up of, I think, 4 or 5 members. I think it's 4 members of the General Assembly. I'm sorry, I'm not sure. Several members of the General Assembly plus a member of the administration. And what the Controlling Board does is they can move around funds within the budget. And they used that mechanism or that approach to expand Medicaid. And that was arguably illegal. And I joined a lawsuit that went before the Ohio Supreme Court. And we lost that suit. So we do have Medicaid expansion today, and it will continue for the foreseeable future.
Thank you. Mr. Carlier, your position on Medicaid expansion under the Affordable Care Act?
I'm in favor of the Medicare expansion. The reason why I am is because there's a lot of people in the state of Ohio that does not have insurance. They cannot afford insurance. So the Affordable Care Act somewhat takes care of that. However, there are 1.7 percentile in the mortality rate in the state of Ohio. To me, that's totally unacceptable. That mortality rate is not from like SIDS or things of that nature. That's because they don't have post-insured care because they can't afford that. That is totally unacceptable. Therefore, they can get into the Medicaid program and that can be eliminated. A lot of that can be eliminated. If they can't afford the insurance, the Affordable Care Act will take care of part of that. Is there flaws in it? Yes, there's a lot of flaws. There's a lot of flaws everywhere. I'll be the first one to tell you there's a lot of flaws in the Ohio General Assembly. And we need that change. I'm going to tell you this. That the Medicare expansion should go forward, should stay here for those people that cannot afford it, so we can have quality health care for those type of people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carlier. Next question starts with you. Would you support a gay marriage amendment for Ohio?
First and foremost, I don't believe that that belongs in the legislative branch. That's between the people, whether it be the guys or the women. That's their choice. If you want to marry, if a man wants to marry a woman, or a woman wants to marry a man, that's fine. I, for one, will not stand in front of that. I will not block that. That's their choice. They don't come to me for my approval. I don't judge them. There's only one that could have done that. He has been working this earth, as our teachings are told, 2014 years. I do not fill those shoes, and I do not believe it belongs in the Ohio General Assembly.
Thank you, Mr. Carlier. Mr. Becker, would you support a gay marriage amendment for Ohio?
Absolutely not. No, frankly, I don't support gay marriage. I don't support polygamy. I don't support adult child and parent marriages. There's a whole lot of varieties of interesting possibilities out there when it comes to redefining marriage. No, I think we should stick with the traditional system we've always had. There's just one man, one woman. I don't want to have to apologize to Utah someday for forcing them to repeal their polygamy laws. The idea is, the institution of marriage needs to stay strong, and it needs to stay, again, as I said, one man, one woman. And to water that down, or to have it include, multiple possibilities, in fact, weakens marriage. So, or some might call it counterfeiting marriage. So if you have more counterfeit money in society, your money in your wallet is less. So the idea of these interesting possibilities with marriage, no, I do not support them, and think with God ordained way back at the beginning of time is the way it should be and the way it should remain.
Thank you, Mr. Becker. Next question goes to you first. What do you see as the state's role in addressing women's reproductive health?
Sure. Reproductive health, that's usually the code word for abortion. The state's role in that, well, certainly safety. But these clinics where the abortions occur should be held to high standards. So whatever safety standards, I would certainly support that. I am pro-life, and if I had the power to individually abolish abortion, I certainly would. It's created a lot of problems in our society, and I think that's all I got.
Thank you. Mr. Carlier, what do you see as the state's role in addressing women's reproductive health?
I don't believe that the state role in women's health is there. It doesn't have a role in that. I, for one, will not stand in front of any female and tell them what to do with their reproductive health. Period. I don't believe it's the role of government, the role of state government, the role of county government, or any other role. That's between the female, her doctor, and the good Lord himself. That, I just can't stand it in front of. The abortion issue, that should be left up to the female. I cannot tell her what to do with that in mind, or with the baby. That's between her and her doctor. And I believe her doctor should be able to counsel her, talk to her, give her that information. End of story. It's not my job or the state role to get involved in that.
Thank you. And this question will be the last, and we'll start with Mr. Carlier. What is your position on the $1.2 million in cuts to local governments by the state? And given those cuts, what recommendations do you have for local police and fire, EMS, to take care of local safety needs?
The cuts that were made to schools, townships, municipalities, a lot of that money was cut because of the tax decrease that was given to the top 5% in this state. That's $360,000 and more a year wage earner. That's not my way of doing things. If you have an income, my feelings is that you pay the income tax on the income. That income tax is going to have to be put back, restored back to where it was at, so that money can be brought back from the townships and municipalities or our schools. We're not in the business as a state legislative branch to give the tax breaks to the higher hurt the middle class and destroy the poverty level in the lower middle class. That's not our job. That's what has taken place. It's time that that stops, and it will stop if I can have anything to do with it on my watch. So those taxes are going to have to be restored back to where they were at Because if you have the top wage earners that will average $15,000 roughly, a tax break, the middle class a $200 tax break, and the lower class a tax increase because they increase the sales tax will make that difference. No. If you make your money, you're going to pay the taxes on it, and we will divvy that out to them so that the fire, EMS, police, et cetera, have the funding that they need to do what they have to do with it.
Thank you. Mr. Becker, what is your position on the $1.2 billion in cuts into local governments by the state? And what are your recommendations, given those cuts to townships and cities, on how fire, EMS, police needs are met?
Sure, thank you. I was just sitting here thinking, listening to my opponent answer this question, this one being apparently the last question. I'm not sure we agreed on anything tonight. In fact, I think we had not. Talking about the higher taxes, I mean, in fact, support lower taxes, so there's another place we're opposite. But my opponent mentioned school funding. We actually increased school funding pretty dramatically in this General Assembly. It was in the last General Assembly, so before I was in Columbus, where they gave those large cuts to the local government fund. I did not support those cuts at that time, and I still do not support them now. My position is that it's my belief that state government can be cutting a lot in amongst themselves. So there's some streamlining of state agencies that can be done, and we can cut some spending in Columbus. I think we should be doing that in Columbus first, and streamlining state government and making it as lean as we can before we reach out to the local governments and tell them they have to do the same. So in the meantime, or if that were to happen, how do local governments survive? I go to local government meetings all over the district. I'm in township meetings, village council meetings, city council meetings, school board meetings, on and on. And I'm hearing about, having to pay for roads, and I'm hearing about the price of the salt supplies. I get that, governments need money to survive. And the townships, especially the smaller townships, got hit harder than anybody else when the legislature abolished the estate tax, which, I did support that, and cut the local government fund. So, there's only so much that can be done, I think, with shared services. And I think the local governments have gotten creative on how to raise more money or how to survive on what they have. But I do not support at this point any additional cuts in the local government fund.
Thank you. And closing statements, we will start with Mr. Carlier.
Thank you. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters and the moderators for this evening. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And thank everybody for showing up. I believe there's a better way forward. I really do. With that in mind, as a former Marine, as the president and chair of the Brotherhood Local of Engineers, I have been endorsed by the Ohio Education Association. I have been endorsed by the members' unions. So they believe in me somewhere along the line with their strings that I have proposed. The ASME unions, which is the state, local, and municipal workers, they've endorsed me. So apparently I have something to offer. I would like to take that to Columbus to help get funding back for the districts, for the state of Ohio. Do what we're supposed to do. We are supposed to go up there for the people, by the people. That's exactly what we're there for. We're not to degrade the people, and I believe we can empower the people to make them better. I really do. And I believe that is the role by a General Assembly instead of for the higher echelon. I believe it should be to help the people, and that's what we want up there for. I would like to ask for your vote on November the 4th of this year, so I can get it close, try to get that accomplished. Thank you very much, and again, thanks to the moderator and the League of Women Voters and everybody in the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Becker.
Thank you. Yes, I would also like to share in thanking the League for doing this, because something that is important is not just getting people out to vote, but getting people educated before they vote. So so they can learn that the candidates learn the issues are very important for a functioning democracy. I do appreciate my opponent. Seems like a very nice man. I really don't know him at all. In fact, it's the first time I think we've actually met. I've seen him a couple of times at different meetings and such. And I do appreciate the service that he has provided for our country with his military service. I do not have that kind of background, so that's something I do very much respect. I do want to say, I was talking about his union endorsements and such. I want to talk about my endorsements. If you think being pro-life is important, I'm endorsed by Cincinnati Right to Life, Ohio Right to Life, and Ohio Pro-Life Action. If you think family values are important, I'm endorsed by Citizens for Community Values. If you think gun rights are important, Second Amendment, I'm endorsed by Buckeye Firearms with an A rating. If you think business is important, or you like the idea of business in our community and expanding and hiring and creating jobs, I'm endorsed by the Ohio Manufacturers Association, the Ohio Chamber of Commerce, with 100% rating from them, the NFIB, that's the National Federation of Independent Business, the Ohio Society of CPAs, and the Ohio Restaurant Association. If you're in the construction business, I'm endorsed by the Home Builders Association of Greater Cincinnati, also the Ohio Valley Associated Builders Contractors, that's the ABC. And if you're a farmer, I have the Friend of Agriculture Award from the Ohio Farm Bureau. And also, I have the highly recommended rating from the Ohio Veterans United. And if you think politics is a pain in the nut, a pain in the neck, I'm endorsed by the Ohio State Contractors Association. So with that, I think my 2 minutes is up, and thank you all for today.
And thank you both very much, Mr. Becker and Mr. Carlier, while they're stepping away. And our